Well, we have $1 million up top. That's a positive, right? This slate, however, not expected to be the best games, but hey, there's still money to make. There's still money to be made. Welcome, guys. My name's DK. In this video, we're going to be breaking down the 2-game DFS slate, Monday Night Football. For some reason, we have 2 games today. I don't really know why, and they're not the best games, but like I said, still big prize pools. If you guys are looking for more in-depth content, you can check out my Patreon link down below for either DFS or for player prop stuff. We've had a massive heater for player props, 21-3 run going into Sunday Night Football. Yeah, hoping to keep it going. I did just upload a video talking about 3 player props I like for tonight. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure to check that one out. Also, sponsor of this video is Parlay Play. If you guys are not on Parlay Play, you can use the link down below for a $100 deposit match bonus. I'm gonna tweet out a play tonight that I like on Parlay Play. But it's a player prop site, and I recommend getting on as many of these as possible. If you are taking player props, on PrizePicks Underdog, get on as many of these sites as possible. Take advantage of their deposit match bonuses, and then search for that value. So if you're interested, link down below, or use the code DKDFS. You can win 75x your money too on Parlay Play, something that you cannot do on PrizePicks or Underdog. So check it out, link down below. And yeah, with all that being said, let's get into the video. Let's quickly take a look at the spread plus the total for both these games. So where you're looking at right now is the OddsJam Sportsbook screen. If you guys are interested in signing up for OddsJam, you can use the code DKDFS for 25% off your first month. They have a ton of different stuff. I had the fancy optimizer for sites like Parlay Play, Underdog, PrizePicks. I brought that up in my video talking to player props. So you guys want to check that out, you can check out that again in the video that I just uploaded. But Saints Panthers right now, it's about a 3-point spread. The Saints are favored on the road, and the Browns Steelers. The Browns about 2-point favorites without Amari Cooper. The total in both these games, let's see. So we got 39.5 for Saints Panthers and about 38 or so for Browns Steelers. Again, what this does is if it shows you, if you wanted to take a side, it gives you which sports book offers the best odds. So super helpful, saves a lot of time. And yeah, so both games projected to be relatively low scoring. But let's just get into the player-by-player breakdown. So we'll start off with the quarterback position. So we got Deshaun Watson at 6'4", Derek Carr at 6K, Bryce Young at 5'6", Pickett at 5'4". Taking a look at ownership, I am a little bit surprised looking at this ownership. I would have thought that, so what I think is going to happen is the majority of the field is going to look to Deshaun Watson or Derek Carr. But right now, ownership relatively spread out with, Carr, Watson around 30%-ish. Kenny Pickett a little bit lower than that, and Bryce Young the lowest owned. But I'm a little bit surprised how much ownership Kenny Pickett is projected for. I would have thought he would have been a lot lower owned, kind of in that Bryce Young category, or pretty low owned, and then Watson, Carr getting most of the ownership. So I do think Watson and Carr are probably your best overall quarterback plays. Watson probably my favorite, just because he's mobile. He had 45 yards in the ground last game. Now he is missing Amari Cooper, but still, I think he's probably, him or Derek Carr, your safest quarterback plays. I think they're going to get a good chunk of the ownership. Carr, again, nothing crazy last week, but 23-33 for 300 yards and then 4 yards on the ground. So those two are probably your safest overall quarterback plays. If you wanted your contrarian quarterback, for me, it's Kenny Pickett. He is somewhat mobile, even though he had 4 yards on the ground last game. They were playing from behind, so he had to air it out last game, but I do like the price point for Pickett. I don't think he's be that popular either. I think most of the field, again, is going to look to Watson or Derek Carr. So I think if you wanted your contrarian quarterback, for me, it would be Kenny Pickett. If you want to look to Bryce Young, sure. I prefer Pickett if you wanted to go to that lower-owned quarterback, though. Let's talk about running back. Nick Chubb is at the top at 8.5K. He's going to be popular. He just is. There's not a lot of spend-ups on this slate, so that's why I'm saying it's going to force some ownership onto a guy like Nick Chubb. I think he has the highest floor plus ceiling. Now, here's the concern with Nick Chubb. If we take a look at the snaps for him last week, it wasn't great. It really wasn't. 36 of the 74 snaps, and Jerome Ford played 30 of the 74. Now, this game was a blowout, and at the very end of the game, you didn't see much Nick Chubb. So I do think Chubb will play a bit more than what we saw in week 1, but still somewhat concerning. Now, Chubb is going to be very productive in the touches that he gets. And with Kareem Hunt gone, you did see 4 catches and 4 targets for Nick Chubb. So even though I do think he's like a little bit overpriced, if you look at like the other spend ups, there's just not a lot of spend ups on this slate. So by default, I think Nick Chubb's going to be popular. I think he's a good play. I think the competitive game, we're probably going to see close to like 70% of snaps would be my guess for Nick Chubb, and then probably 30% for Jerome Ford. But yeah, even with 70% of snaps, I still think Nick Chubb's a really good play. Najee Harris, 6'2", not a huge fan. Again, it's kind of just like 3 yards in a cloud of dust, it seems like every time with Najee Harris. Snaps weren't amazing on him week 1. If you take a look at it, he played 33 of the 63 snaps, 25 of the 63 for Jaylen Warren. You saw a few snaps for Anthony McFarland. So Harris, at this price point, he's more of just a contrarian play. Doesn't mean you cannot play him. It's just that I don't love the price on him. Like, I think if you're going to make me pick between the backs, I might give the edge to Jaylen Warren, who was a little bit more involved in the passing game. Ran a lot of routes. On his 25 snaps, he ran 19 routes. So it's kind of clear Pittsburgh does like Warren as the pass catcher. Now, again, this game was a blowout too, so maybe Najee sees a few more snaps if the game is competitive, but I'm not in love with either of the Steelers backs. Now, one guy that I do like a good amount here is going to be Jamal Williams, 6K. I know he didn't do much last week, but it's just the opportunity thing. There really wasn't anyone else behind him. Tony Jones saw a few snaps. Kirk Merritt saw a couple snaps. Kyler Miller's questionable. Even if he plays, I don't think he gets a ton of work. So, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of Jamal Williams. He played 49 to 65 snaps on 24 routes. I'm expecting a similar workload here for Jamal Williams in a much better matchup than we saw week 1. So I think he's a very good option in that range. I also do have interest in Miles Sanders. You got him and Chuba Hubbard, similar price points. I mean, just give me Miles Sanders all day long over Chuba Hubbard, right? Sanders is still the RB1 here. He played 44 of the 77 snaps. Chuba Hubbard played 28 of the 77. So, I mean, if Sanders was like 2K more expensive, then you can maybe make the argument for playing Chuba over him. When Chuba is so close in price point to Miles Sanders, I'm just going to play Sanders every time over him. Sanders had 18 carries and 4 catches and 6 targets, so I like him a good amount in the mid-range. He's going to be relatively popular in the slate, but I think Sanders is a good play. Chuba, again, he was productive in his limited touches, but like I have a hard time playing him over Miles Sanders when they're similar priced. And then we talked about Jaylen Warren. If Kendra Miller can't go, Tony Jones most likely will be the backup, but he barely played last week. If Kendra Miller plays, you would assume he's going to be the backup, but how many snaps will he get, right? The one other guy I want to mention here is Jerome Ford. I think box score watchers will probably just avoid him. 15 carries, 36 yards. He lost a fumble too, so they're going to see, 2 fancy points, but can't play Jerome Ford. I don't think the Browns are a team that just using a true bell cow back. I do think Chubb is still going to play a good amount. Again, I'm thinking maybe 70% snaps. That leaves about 30% snaps for a cheap Jerome Ford, close to min price. I think he's sneaky in a Millie Maker setting like this one, right? Jerome Ford, in my opinion, I actually think he's a pretty good running back. We didn't see it in week 1, but I do think he's pretty talented. He's a solid pass catcher. And again, he played 30 of the 74 snaps, ran 12 routes. I think he's kind of sneaky at no ownership on this slate. Let's talk about the wide receivers. So at the top, again, Cooper, 6'1". He's not expected to play. I'd be very surprised if he does play. He injured his groin in Saturday's practice, so we're not expecting Amari Cooper to play. Olave, Michael Thomas, very safe at the top, in my opinion. They're your safest wide receiver plays on this slate. The number 1, number 2 options, and probably the passing attack that you're going to feel the best about for Monday Night Football is going to be the Saints passing attack. Look at the snaps last week for these two guys. You saw them play majority of the game. 51 of the 65 snaps for Olave, and Michael Thomas played 52 of the 65. Both ran a ton of routes. Michael Thomas still looks pretty good. I know he's been banged up for a good chunk of his career, but he still looks solid out there. Olave had the huge day. Both Saints receivers, I think, are good plays. Both will be popular. Actually, factoring in price, I think I do prefer Michael Thomas. But as I said, there's just not a lot of spend-ups on this slate. So you have to spend your money somewhere. And by default, you're just going to see a lot of people look to jam in these top guys, which I think it's the right move. You have to spend your salary, right? Now, I do think in a Millie Maker tournament like this one, you can leave some salary on the table. But I don't think I would go crazy. Showdown slates where I'm a little bit more inclined to leave a lot of salary on the table. Like a 2-game slate like this, I still think you can, but I'm not looking to leave like 2,000 on the table, which like I'm totally fine with doing that in like a showdown slate, if that makes sense. But yeah, Olave, Michael Thomas, I think both very good plays at the top. George Pickens. So you guys watch my content over the last, couple of years. I'm very high on George Pickens. I think he's a really talented wide receiver, and now you got no Deontay Johnson. Now here's the thing: it's a really bad matchup against Cleveland, but like, who else are they going to throw the ball to, right? So I think Pickens is a really solid play, and I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership. So I like him quite a bit for GPPs. Let me see, projected ownership. I still project for a fair amount of ownership, I guess. But should be operating as wide receiver 1. And I think Pittsburgh's going to try to force feed him the ball just because, again, they don't really have anyone else they could go to. Take a look at the snaps last week for Pickens. He played 56 of the 63 snaps. Deontay Johnson got injured kind of early in the game. He only played 27. The other receivers we'll talk about in a bit, Allen Robinson played 56 snaps. And then it was Calvin Austin that was operating as wide receiver 3. He played 35 snaps. So we'll talk about those guys in a bit. But I like the ceiling a lot in Pickens. Bad matchup, but still a guy I think has a pretty high ceiling. All right. Elijah Moore is 4.5K. So he had 3 catches and 7 targets. Donovan Peoples-Jones is 3.7K. These two should be operating as the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 for Cleveland now that Amari Cooper's out. So again, there's a lot of value on the slate. Those two I think look like pretty good value plays. DPJ played 66 of the 74 snaps. Elijah Moore played 51. Now, as far as who's going to get wide receiver 3 snaps, that's a little bit more unclear for me. You got Marquise Goodwin, who played 10 snaps. Tillman played 11. David Bell played 10. I think they could kind of mix in behind Moore and DPJ. So I don't know if I'm willing to take shots in those guys. But as far as DPJ and Moore go, at their price points, I think they're both pretty good wide receiver plays. Both should get ownership. You're not going to be contrarian playing either of these guys. And Elijah Moore, both these Cleveland receivers project very well for their price point. So I think they're both good values in Moore and in DPJ. Again, no Amari Cooper, most likely he's out. So these two get a pretty big bump there. Allen Robinson, 4.3, did have 8 targets. Again, he should be operating as a wide receiver 2. I prefer Pickens to Allen Robinson, even though Pickens is more expensive. But Allen Robinson's still going to have a lot of opportunities, and he's cheap. And I think he will be a bit lower owned than those 2 Cleveland guys that we just talked about, right? DPJ and Moore, and looking at ownership projections, it makes sense that those guys are projected for a fair amount of ownership. Where a guy like Robinson is coming in way less owned, way less projected owned. So Robinson, I think, is a fine value. Rashid Shaheed, it's hard to say. He had a good game and 5 catches and 6 targets. Also had 2 rushing attempts. He's 4.2K. Now, the snaps weren't amazing on him, but he's pretty clearly the wide receiver 3, 35 of the 65 snaps for Shaheed. So I don't think he's going to play as much as some of these other guys that we just talked about, but I do think he's going to be involved. And like I said, I think the Saints passing attack is the passing attack you should feel the best about for Monday Night Football. All right, now we get to these Carolina receivers. DJ Chark is questionable. Now, even if he plays, I don't think we get full a full workload. Now let's take a look at the snaps for Carolina in week 1. Carolina, looking at the snaps, you saw Adam Thielen play 68 of the 77 snaps, 67 of the 77 for Mingo, and Marshall played 69 of the 77. So you basically saw them play 3 wide receivers most of the game. Laviska Shenault was the wide receiver 4. He played 25 snaps. So take a look at the price points. If Chark is out, I think Thielen's my favorite, but Mingo and Marshall would both be first. Like, none of these receivers really did a ton with their snaps. But if they're going to see almost the entire game again, in a game they're probably going to be playing from behind, sign me up for some of these cheap Panthers receivers. Again, I think Thielen being my favorite, but I've understood Mingo, I've understood Marshall. Now, if Chark plays, I don't think Chark really would affect Thielen. I think he would take snaps away from guys like Mingo and Terrence Marshall, and Laviska Shenault would lose snaps too. So these Panthers receivers are cheap, but if the Panthers could at least just score some points, like at least one of these receivers is going to have a pretty good game. I think my favorite is Adam Thielen, but I have interest in Mingo. Again, I have interest in Terrence Marshall. And then we mentioned Calvin Austin. I think he's going to be operating as wide receiver 3 here for Pittsburgh. He had a really good game in limited snaps, 6 catches on 6 targets. No issue with Calvin Austin there at that price point. Kirkwood did see a little bit of snaps for the Saints, but probably not enough for me to consider him in this slate. He played 22 of the 65 snaps. And yeah, that's it for wide receivers. Let's finish up with tight end. I think my favorite overall tight end play on the slate is going to be David Njoku. He didn't do a ton. He did not do a ton week 1, but still played a good amount of snaps. And now there's no Amari Cooper. I think what the field's going to do is they're going to look immediately to Elijah Moore and DPJ, who I do like. But David Njoku is a guy that's also going to get a bump. He played 54 of the 74 snaps. So I like him quite a bit at that price point. Pat Frymouth is 4.5K. So the issue with him is the snaps are not amazing. That's kind of what I was expecting for week 1 for him. He only played 32 of the 63 snaps. Darnell Washington played 24 of the 63, and he ran 16 routes. Hayward played 17 snaps and ran 14 routes. They mixed in 3 tight ends. So that's my worry with Frymouth. And also, he's projected for a good amount of ownership. So, Frymouth, again, I know there's no Deontay Johnson. You would assume he gets a little bit more looks, but I think he might be a little bit over-owned tonight. Based on what we saw week 1. Saints tight ends. All right, so looking at the Saints, Juwan Johnson played 49 to 65 snaps. That was a good amount of snaps for Juwan Johnson. Taysom Hill played 9 snaps. I cannot wait to be trolled by Taysom Hill Monday Night Football. He's going to pound in like 2 touchdowns and just ruin the slate. But yeah, Juwan Johnson, 4.1. I think he's a pretty good tight end play too. I think I would rank him at the top here. Njoku 1, Johnson 2, Pat Frymouth 3. Hayden Hurst is 4K. He also saw a fair amount of snaps for Carolina. He played 41 of the 77 snaps, ran 30 routes, and he had a pretty good game, right? 5 catches and 7 targets, 1 touchdown. So I'm totally fine with Hayden Hurst too. Below that, again, Taysom Hill, I'm ready to be trolled. As I said, he had 1 target and 3 carries, even though he only played 9 snaps. So he's going to be, mainly a guy that comes in around the red zone. So he is playable. It's just like, I'm ready to be trolled, man. I'm ready to have Jamal Williams, and I'm ready for them to just pound one in with Taysom Hill. It's happened so much over the years. So like, you have to consider Hill. Even though he played 9 snaps, you still have to consider him. Backup tight end Harrison Bryant for Cleveland, more of a Millie Maker play, but he still saw 27 snaps. No, he only ran 9 routes, so that is the concern. We talked about Hayward and Washington. I would rather play Washington over Hayward. Washington played more snaps than Hayward. I guess they ran similar routes, but 16 routes and 24 snaps for Washington, 14 routes and 17 snaps for Hayward. So again, more Millie Maker plays there. Akins was the tight end 3. Again, Jimmy Graham saw a few snaps, but not really enough for me to consider him. And then as far as defense goes, I mean, defense is a high variance position. I don't know. I think the Saints will probably be the most popular defense, but I'm okay with any of these defenses. Browns will definitely be a defense that gets ownership, especially after what they did week 1. Sorry, guys. My allergies are acting up a little bit. I think Browns, Saints will probably be relatively popular, but any of these defenses I think are in play. And again, you guys know I hate that we still have to play defense in 2023 for daily fantasy sports. But that's going to wrap up this video, guys. If you have been enjoying, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Again, if you're interested in player prop stuff, make sure to check out my video. We just full swap the Sunday board on YouTube. So go check out the 3 props I talked about for Monday Night Football. Good luck, and we'll see you guys all in the next video.